Ooh, people are rolling in. Welcome, everyone. We will be starting here shortly.
And give everybody a couple minutes to get loaded in here.
We're just sitting here admiring ourselves on the big screen.
Any jokes you want to tell them? Start the night off?
No, it's still too early. Got to get warmed up a little bit.
Any good fishing stories or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing quite a bit of fishing actually this year. I made a trip down to the White River in Arkansas with Cardiac Mountain Outfitters, Damon Spurgeon, and I'm actually leaving. I'll get up at 3 a.m. Saturday morning, head down to the Merrimack because we're going to float the Merrimack and try to catch some trout and some smallmouth with Damon in his drift boat. So been doing quite a bit, man.
That's good.
It's been fun.
Time to get out.
Fished the upper current last weekend. Pretty slow. Water was pretty low, and during the middle of the summer that gets beat up pretty bad with everybody. So, but slow day on the water is better than a fast day anywhere else.
There you go. Those of you just joining, we're going to give everybody a few minutes to get loaded in here, and we'll get started.
But welcome to the behind the scenes.
CFM Virtual Fundraiser 2021. Everybody hasn't had a chance yet to go on and look at your auction items. A lot of good stuff out there. Auction's going to close at 6:45 this evening. Did you have your eye on anything that you were bidding on?
Well, I don't know. That shooting experience with that Shags character looked pretty cool. But then I did see that Big Surf was up there and that our good friend Brandon Butler was bidding on it. So I had my eye on it just to bid it up on him a little bit.
You ever been to Big Surf?
I haven't. I'm not a big water park guy or roller coaster guy. I'm not a big fan of heights. So like the big water slides and stuff, it's not my thing.
All right. It's a little after 6. People might still be joining, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to the CFM Virtual Fundraiser this evening. Certainly appreciate you taking time out of your evening to join us for a good cause. We've got 2 great guests that are going to join me, and I'd like to welcome my co-host, Nathan Shags McLeod, CFM board member and great supporter of the Federation. Thanks for joining us and being here with us tonight.
Always a pleasure, my man. Anything to get the good word out about conservation and Conservation Federation of Missouri. So hope we raise some money and get some high bids on those auction items. And I'm looking forward to talking about bear hunting and all sorts of fun charitable work.
Yeah, certainly. You know, you mentioned the auction. We're going to throw up the auction link in the chat if you haven't had an opportunity to go and look at our auction yet. A lot of great items. We actually have a few here in the house with us tonight. Got this wonderful Schwartze eagle print, part of our package. Oh, this is my favorite here. The coonskin cap. Check that thing out.
Well, then you got to try it on.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
got a buck knife here. What else we got? Cool beaver hoop pelt. Lots of good stuff. Several books, a lot of books from Ron Coleman's that he donated to us, and we put some of those packages together, and a lot of great things out of his library with some prints and the wine package, Big Surf tickets. So a lot of cool stuff in the auction. You know, we didn't charge to this event, but when we've had this typically this year in Columbia, each time this year in years past, and you've been there with us, we've been in Bass Pro Shop. So I'd ask that you all consider donating tonight. The normal ticket price was $40 in the past, or $75 a couple. So instead of putting your gas money towards joining us tonight, please think about donating to the Federation, and we certainly appreciate all the good support that we get from everybody.
And we also have the Morning Shag shooting experience. So for the Pull for Conservation, that'll be happening August 14th. Myself and my co-host Trevor will be at the event shooting, and the highest bidder on the Morning Shag shooting experience will not only get 2 tickets to shoot, you and your partner will shoot against Trevor and I for bragging rights and probably some KCMQ swag that I steal from the radio station. But on top of all that as well, is we're going to hook you up. The shoot is the same day as the 9th annual Morning Shag birthday bash. So not only will you get to shoot with us in the morning, we'll put you on the guest list. You'll get to go to the Blue Note later that night. You get to watch tributes to AC/DC, ZZ Top, Guns N' Roses by some local bands. So it's going to be a fun, full day of conservation and rock and roll. So be sure to get on there and make a couple of bids for the Morning Shag shooting experience happening August 14th.
Cool. That'll be fun, and certainly appreciate you donating that experience for us. And that's going to be tonight. We're going to have somebody that's going to win that experience. 6:45. That'll close. So get on there and bid early and often. So
I should warn you though, we take it very seriously.
I can tell.
Speaking of shooting, we should mention this beautiful, beautiful piece of machinery. CZ has teamed up with the Conservation Federation of Missouri to celebrate 85 years of CFM. You can buy this gun now for $6.99, and I have a CZ, and I can't say enough great things about this manufacturer, about these guns. It's just absolutely beautiful, and you got till the end of the year to get yourself this piece of history and just this beautiful shotgun. Buy it now, $6.99.
I like it. Yeah.
Get that order in. Then next year, it might be the gun that beats me.
There you go. Cool. That's a little bit about that. We've also got a raffle that's going to be coming up. It's going to be a shotgun, a rifle, and a pistol. And then we'll also have a 3-night stay to Big Cedar Lodge with golf and meals and gift cards and all that stuff. So a wonderful, huge package, prize package from Big Cedar Lodge too, from our friends at Bass Pro Shops. So it's going to be a combination of one of 4 things. You can go on, put your money in, and click on how many tickets you want to put in each of the different buckets. And so that'll be rolled out in August, and we'll draw that in December as well. And the final thing that we want to tell you about was our photo contest that we have going on. We got an awesome fundraiser right now that you upload your photo, and then you can go on and vote. $1 a vote, in which you'll go look at the different photos and click on whichever bucket you want to put in there and vote for too as well. So kind of a cool different way to showcase some great photographers in Missouri and raise money for CFM.
Yeah, for sure. And some of the pictures are really neat. You get the whole spectrum of what you think is like legitimate outdoor photography, but now with the technology we carry around in our pockets, you can take some incredible photos just by using your phone. Amateur photography as well. A lot of smiling faces with first animals, first fish, first deer, and that's really the cool part about it. Not only raising money for Conservation Federation of Missouri, but getting to see people enjoying the outdoors as well.
So it's all about.
For sure.
Yeah, certainly. So that's a few great things coming up this summer. He mentioned the clay shoot coming up next month, August 14th, east of Columbia. Certainly hope you can join us. And if you can't shoot, come out and volunteer or come out and spend the day with us. So a lot of good stuff going on this summer.
I look forward to that shoot. That's something we look forward to every single year, Trevor and I, getting out there and the pull for conservation. And again, you can shoot against us. Go bid now.
I love it. Well, should we get to our first guest?
I think so. I'm excited to talk about bears. First
Awesome.
bear season in Missouri.
Yes. We have a guest in the house with us, Miss Laura Conlee with Missouri Department of Conservation. Come on and have a seat.
Sure.
She is the Furbearer and black bear biologist with the department, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Thanks.
as you know, people all know or are excited about the upcoming bear season. So we appreciate you taking time to kind of talk through some of this stuff and what people can do to be bear aware, and want to learn about the season and all kinds of good stuff. So let's just start it off there. Tell us about the season and what people can expect for this coming year.
Yeah, so really exciting for us here in Missouri. Our first bear season opening up October 18th. So to have been drawn for an application, you would have had to, or drawn for a permit, you would have had to submit your application between May 1st and May 31st. So that application period has ended, the drawing has occurred. So the random drawing for the 400 bear permits that are spread across our 3 bear management zones happened, and folks were notified. that they were awarded a permit, so they can go ahead, purchase their bear permits. These are bear management zone specific permits. So folks had to pick a bear management zone to apply for, and then that's the zone that they're able to hunt if they're drawn. So these 3 bear management zones kind of divide the southern part of the state, really. So bear management zone 1 is in the southwestern part of the state. This is the area we've had bears for the longest, the area where we have the highest densities of bears. We issued 200 permits to bear management zone 1, and we have a 20 bear harvest quota for bear management zone 1. Bear management zone 2 is a bigger zone in the southeastern part of the state. The density varies from different parts of that bear management zone. We issued 150 permits to that zone and have a 15 bear harvest quota. And then bear management zone 3 is basically the rest of the southern part of the state. So that includes Lake of the Ozarks, Truman Reservoir. We issued 50 permits to bear management zone 3 and have a 5 bear harvest quota for bear management zone 3. So we've got a lot of folks that are really excited that they were drawn. We're offering through the department Discover Nature black bear hunting basics to those hunters who were lucky enough to get drawn. We've got 3 classes coming up that they can go ahead and register for. We'll talk about basically the basics of bear hunting, everything associated with the new season, the regulations, pre-hunt, post-hunt, all those things that you need to think about getting ready for the season, and what you'll need to do if you harvest a bear. So basically trying to cover a whole bunch of material in an hour and a half. So, I mean, it's not going to be as in-depth as it certainly could be, but a really good opportunity for folks that were drawn to be able to get some additional information. And then we will be opening up more of those classes to anybody who's interested. So once we get through those first 3 classes, anybody would be able to sign up for one of those and learn about, you know, the regulations here and the basics of bear hunting and stuff like that. So really exciting time. And this season is, it should be looked at as a really big conservation success story, right? So our bear population has grown to levels where it can sustain this limited and highly regulated harvest, which is just a phenomenal success that we're able to offer this season to Missourians. And the objective of this first season is really to provide opportunity for those who would like to participate in the sustainable harvest of this really valuable natural resource. So a huge conservation success story here with black bears in the state, and just kind of a testament to the conservation ethic of folks within the state that our bear population has grown to these levels where it can sustain that limited harvest. And then as that bear population continues to grow, hunting will be one of those essential components of population management as we establish population benchmarks in the future and follow the bear management plan and things like that. So
it really is historic. It's an amazing story just to have our first ever elk season followed by our first ever bear season. I mean, the work that's gone in over all these years and generations has been absolutely incredible. Now, I know with the bear season, there was a lot of people that were shocked by the idea of it. I'm like, what? Missouri bears? But we actually, there's Missouri bear country. We are bear country here in Missouri. So to describe that a little bit, and then also the bear research project you guys have going on.
Yeah, that's one of those huge messages that we're really trying to get across, that Missouri is bear country. We're not talking about the Smoky Mountains anymore or out west. I mean, here in Missouri, we have a growing and expanding, well-established bear population. And so really, you know, a lot of folks, they think about, you know, the most southern part of the state. That's certainly where we have the greatest numbers of bears. But as we've seen from the news lately, bears can show up just about anywhere. We've had bears, you know, we have bears that live in and around Lake of the Ozarks, and we have sighting reports every year around those areas. So, I mean, that is part of bear country, but we had a bear show up in the St. Louis area. And so as we get to certain times of year, those bears can wander and they go through this dispersal behavior in the summer months and show up elsewhere. So that's one of those really important things. You know, if you live here in Missouri, you come vacation to the Ozarks or anything like that, we have established bears here, and there's a lot that you need to learn about to be bear aware, to make sure you're not providing, you know, easy food sources for bears and things like that. But all of this information about our population really resulted from a really large-scale research project that the department took on beginning in 2010. So prior to that, we knew we had an established bear population here. We knew bear reports were increasing in numbers, but we didn't have an estimate of the population or how quickly it was growing or anything like that. So really in 2010, MDC initiated a research project with research cooperators at Mississippi State University. We now currently work both with Mississippi State and the State University of New York, with folks that are well-renowned in this type of work. And so through that research project, we were able to develop an initial population estimate. So in 2010 to 2012, we had around 350 bears in the state. Transitioned that to probably what's the more well-known research project, the den work, where folks have seen the MDC Facebook posts at bear dens and stuff like that. So basically going in, counting the number of cubs a female has, seeing how long those cubs, how many of them live to age 1, how long our female bears survive, all of those critical pieces of information for estimating a bear population. So that enabled us to get to where we're at today, estimating that we have about 800 bears in the state. And that population is growing at about 9% annually. So at that rate, we would expect the population to double in about a decade. So really rapid recolonization, rapid growth. And I just have had a couple conversations with folks this year where they're like, all of a sudden there's bears there. I mean, I've lived here. This is the first time I've heard about it. And that is kind of the reality of it. I mean, that's where we're at in this population growth and expansion. So we're also kicking off a new research project. So we'll actually be repeating the initial study we had, which was a hair snare study, to get at another point estimate of the population so we can model growth from there. But a lot of really exciting work with bears. Folks often say, like, you've got a really cool job, and they are so, they're absolutely right. I mean, it's a really cool job, and it's a really cool time to be working with bears in this state with the growing population, the initiation of our first hunting season here. Just tons of exciting conservation work going on with bears right now.
I think it's so cool to just hear about the how you do the counts and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how you put up the hair snares? I think that's really neat.
So for the hair snare component of it, it's basically barbed wire hair snare corrals that we put out in the woods. So between a couple of trees, you string out these barbed wire strands, put an attractant in the middle, and basically as the bears walk under or over, they leave hair in the barbs. And so from that hair, we collect that hair, send it off to a DNA lab, and they're able to identify individual bears. We can see how many individuals visit each individual hair snare, how many individuals visit multiple hair snares, the distance that they travel to those different hair snares. And from all of that, we can extrapolate a population estimate from it. And so it gives us a really good look at what the population, where the population is at that point in time. But with this new study, the exciting thing too, we're going to expand the coverage of that. So we have bears well established, in the southern third of the state, and bears in these expansion areas, say around Lake of the Ozarks or south of St. Louis. So setting up hair snares in these locations as well to get a better picture of differences in density and how that population varies across the landscape, to help inform management decisions in the future.
Well, I think too, now that we're having this expanding bear population, that you mentioned it before about being bear aware. And there is a lot of people, I don't know if it's because we grew up with teddy bears and cuddly little things, and they are adorable, come on. But you can just go to YouTube to see wildly inappropriate interactions with bears. There was a viral video that happened a couple of months ago, that woman running out on her back deck and pushing that bear off the retaining wall because she was trying to protect her little yapping dog, or the people that try to take a photo, a selfie with bears. So let's talk, because we had a bear sighting in Boone County just a couple of months ago in the Ashland area. What should people do if they wake up one morning and there's a bear in their backyard?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that's a really good point, because bears exist on the landscape, humans exist on the landscape. There's inevitably overlap in where we occur in the state and things like that. Many of our bears use really large tracts of forested land, really rural areas, but they still come into contact with people and with homesteads and things like that. And then as we have that population growing and expanding, as bears move, they're coming into many of these more populated areas. So, when a bear shows up in the suburbs of St. Louis, most people are like, what in the world is this animal doing here? And so there's a lot of education that goes with that. So reminding folks that during the summer months, young bears disperse and they can often wander through a variety of different areas. And the big thing with being bear aware comes down to making sure you're not providing food. So not providing food resources, pet food that's left outside, bird seed, barbecue grills that aren't kept clean, trash that's not in secure containers, all of those kinds of things can serve as an attractant. So, we're not trying to minimize a bear, but if a raccoon would eat it, a bear would also eat it. And so for a lot of folks, they're much more familiar with raccoons getting into their trash and things like that. So thinking of it from that perspective, a bear would be attracted to the same types of food sources, but they are an order of magnitude bigger and stronger and more capable of getting into things. And so rather than, seeing the raccoon paw prints on your barbecue grill, a bear is capable of moving the barbecue grill. And so there's just a big difference there. So if somebody were to wake up and they see a bear in their yard, the best thing that they can do, make a lot of noise to give that bear a negative experience. And then once that bear moves on, take a really good look and try to figure out what might have attracted the bear to come in. And if you see any of those food sources, bird feeders, hummingbird feeders, trash, anything like that, do your best to secure those. So putting them in secure outbuildings, bringing in the bird feeders. If folks have chickens or bees, electric fencing is an amazing tool. And the department has a ton of resources available on our website, and then through our wildlife damage biologist, advice that they can provide if folks actually are having bear damage issues. So it's not something where, you let that damage continue. There's a lot of steps that could be taken right off the bat to make sure that those bears don't become accustomed to human foods, because when they do, you hear the "a fed bear is a dead bear" thing. And unfortunately, that's one of those things that when a bear starts to become accustomed to those human foods, they can become more bold in their behaviors. So rather than just knocking a trash can over, maybe they try to break into the shed that's holding the trash. And in those instances, those are the bears that end up having to be euthanized. And that's an unfortunate circumstance because a lot of that can be prevented really early on. Now, if you're out hiking, floating, camping, any of the things we all like to do during the summer months, this is prime time when you might encounter a bear on the trail. As you mentioned, not a selfie opportunity. So bears often run up a tree, and that's their escape mechanism. So when a bear doesn't feel comfortable, they go straight up the tree. And when they do that, it is super tempting for folks to come in and get the camera out and try to see it and everything. That bear's up the tree because it doesn't like the situation that's going on. That's your cue to just back out of the area. The bear will come down when it's ready. It's not something where you have to continually check on it or anything like that. That's what bears do. They're designed to do that. Keeping clean campsites, making sure you're storing your food appropriately. You're not disposing of food in your campfire. You're not putting food in your tent. All of those things are really, really important bits of information for staying safe in bear country and making sure that we're not encouraging these bears to come in where folks are spending time.
That's really good. I learn something new every time that you hear about these bears. And one thing I'm fascinated is the amount of travel. You see, you've heard about bears that travel this great amount of distance and stuff. So what causes the bears to expand? What kind of is their area? And I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about why a bear disperses and what they travel.
Yeah, so it's oftentimes twofold. We often get a flurry of bear reports that come in June and July, and that coincides with the dispersal season. So young bears get kicked out from their mothers when they're about 16 months old, and for those males, they can wander huge distances, 60 to 100 miles, if not more than that. We've had other bears that have gone greater distances than that. So they cover a lot of ground, and basically they're out looking for a place to set up shop. And as they go through some of these areas, they follow corridors, and many of those corridors sometimes lead them into towns or neighborhoods, especially neighborhoods that border forested areas. So we often see these young bears, so 1.5, 2.5-year-old bears that show up say in the St. Louis area or other areas where folks just are not expecting to see a bear. And it just comes with that time of year. And so those young males, they move really far distances. Females generally disperse much closer to home. And so they tend to overlap a portion of their mother's home range. And so the male component of our population expands more rapidly than the female component. There's a delay, if you will, with the female component of the population. But then you couple that with the breeding season. So around in June and July, those adult males that are breeding age start covering their breeding range, which can be 100 square miles. And so they're basically seeking out as many females as they can during that breeding season. And so they're moving huge distances, they're covering a ton of ground, crossing roads and things like that. So that tends to be kind of the peak of bear reports that we get. Once the blackberries come in, the breeding season kind of is wearing down. Bears are entering that period where they're feeding on, those blackberries right now. So our reports tend to dwindle a little bit this time of year. But yeah, we get that flurry of those dispersing animals coming in June. And so that's always the biggest shock for folks. But I think, I'm starting to talk to people where they may have heard about the bear in the next town over last year. And so it wasn't so much of a surprise. And they're starting to understand that, yeah, this is what's coming. This is what's happening, making sure they're bringing in their bird feeders and things like that. So as that population continues to grow, these things will only become more common.
That's interesting. So you talked about how the bears, disperse. What's the timeline of hibernation in Missouri? Yeah. And just talk us through, like when they're feeding from now through fall, winter, and then the next spring.
Yeah. So bears actually have an interesting breeding process too that kind of fits into that hibernation. So bears undergo something called delayed implantation. So the mating season occurs in June and July. The embryo starts to develop a little bit and then it just pauses. And so it goes through kind of just a suspended animation phase until the fall. And so for a female bear that's bred during the summer, if she goes into the den in good body condition, she's able to add on fat stores and things like that, that embryo will implant. She'll have a litter of cubs in the den. If she's in poor body condition, say we have a really poor mast year, that embryo won't implant. And so she won't give birth in the den. And that's one of those evolutionary adaptations to ensure that they can make it through these winter food shortages. And so with that, that breeding season occurs in the summer months. It's a little bit different than in the fall. Most folks are used to deer, the rut and everything. So bears breed much earlier. But as we move into August, they enter a period called hyperphagia. And basically, they are consuming as many calories as they possibly can. And that's so that they can pack on the fat before winter. And so during this time of year, they're consuming about 20,000 calories a day, feeding for about 20 hours a day. I mean, you talk about a bear fattening up for winter. I mean, that is their entire focus. And so for most of our bears, we see them enter the den generally around the middle of November. A lot of it depends on food though. So in really abundant food years, they can stay active longer because food's available. If food becomes a little bit scarce, they'll enter that winter den because it starts to become more costly to find food than it would be to just den. And when they go into that winter den, they are not eating, drinking, urinating, defecating. They are basically in this physiological recycling phase. It's one of those things that just is fascinating to me, that an animal can feed for that long and then go into the winter den and not eat for months at a time.
Sounds like me at a tailgate. But it's interesting too, because we always think, when I think of bears and dens, you think of these like elaborate cave systems and stuff like this. But for black bears, it could be just a brush pile or a pile of some leaves that they've done.
Yeah, so that's absolutely correct. We see every type of den that you can imagine. So you're right. I mean, we're taught as kids, it's the cave, it's the deep dark cave and the bear sleeping in the back. And we have bears that do that. So with the karst topography that we have here, there's no shortage of caves, there's no shortage of rock ledges. We have bears that, I mean, are way back into these cave systems where we can't hear the beep from their collar at the entrance kind of thing. And then we have bears that will den in brush piles. We'll have bears den next to down logs. We've had bears, you know, they den at the hollow base of a tree. So standing living trees that are hollowed out at the bottom, they kind of have a nice little spot there. I mean, we've had a 250-pound sow and her 200-pound yearlings stuffed into the hollow base of a tree.
Wow.
So, I mean, they find all sorts of different den types. And then we even have bears in more open dens where they're in basically a leaf nest just within a briar thicket, you know. And the one thing too that I think most folks think of when they think of a bear denning, that they are just sound asleep. And they do go through periods of inactivity in the den where they're less aware. But the majority of time when we're doing our den work, when we walk up to a den, that bear is either looking at us or looking away from us, and they're fully aware that we're coming in. They know that we're coming. And female bears give birth in the winter den. So they're giving birth to anywhere from 1 to 4 cubs. And those cubs are about 8 inches long, hairless, 8 ounces, fully dependent on the female. So she is nursing them. They put on about a pound a week. So that female is not necessarily sound asleep either. She's got her work cut out for her in the den.
Wow. Well, it looks like we got a question off the chat. How do you monitor hunters to limit possibility of poaching?
Yeah, so you know that's a question that we've received, you know, a couple of times, talking about this being a brand new season and things like that. Our protection staff, we've got agents covering every county, and those agents are aware of what they're looking for, and it's not unique to bears. They monitor hunters for every species, and so bears is just another species that's now added to that list of their activities that they do. And we've got a lot of rules and regulations associated with this bear hunting season. So hunters are required to report their harvest just like they are for deer by 10 p.m. the day of harvest. They're required to submit a tooth to us for aging. So there's a lot of regulations associated with this season too.
Interesting. I'm just blown away with some of the fact. So when do they actually have the young, and how long is that period? You said 100 pounds. Like how long? A pound a week, or how does that all
Yeah.
work?
So bears, they're born around the 1st of February. So say plus or minus a week. We generally start our winter dens around the last week of February, 1st week of March. At that point in time, the bears are usually, they have their eyes open. They're about 4 weeks old. They can range anywhere from 4 to 6 pounds generally. And then as you get to the end of March, I mean, they're adding those pounds on pretty quickly. And so by the end of March, handling a 9-pound cub gets to be tough. They're capable of climbing at that point. So we really try to wrap up our den work before they reach that size. And then a yearling bear, so one that would turn 1 basically in the winter den, they can range anywhere from 50 to just over 100 pounds. And that's when we see them in the den. So the one thing to think about when we're talking about the weights of a bear when we're handling them in the den, at that point, they've already lost a substantial amount of weight from what they went into the den as, because they haven't been eating for several months at that point. So many of these bears go into the winter den quite a bit heavier than what we see them at when we handle them in the den.
Now, you guys did the season for a reason, because you're hoping the females will already have started going to the dens, because do they go in earlier than the males?
So we actually looked at that very closely when we set up the timing of the season. So really we looked at female movement rates, we looked at male movement rates and things like that, and the onset of denning. And we actually placed the season at a time where the vast majority of our bears would still be available for harvest. And so given the population levels and things like that, looking at the harvest quotas that we've set, it's a very sustainable way of doing it. And so yeah, we actually timed that season when prior to the majority of bears denning. Now there likely will be some that have denned, but we typically see the peak of denning a little bit later than where the season is set.
Very cool. Laura, thank you so much.
Yeah,
This
no
was a
problem.
lot of information.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed it as much
Super
as we
cool.
did. Yeah, very cool. Thank you for taking
Yeah,
the
no,
time
thank
to
you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
and visit with us. And maybe a year from now we'll be able to sit and talk about the first season and see where we're going. But
Absolutely.
thanks for all the hard work
No,
that you guys
thanks.
do, and your entire team at the Department of Conservation.
Yeah.
You guys do a great job.
Thank
and
you.
Certainly
Thanks.
appreciate all your efforts.
Thanks.
And the hunters out there are,
Yeah, good luck.
yeah,
I wasn't one of them, so I'm rooting for you.
very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Laura. Well, moving right along, we've got, we're about halfway through our evening. We've got Mike Sutherland, the director of Missouri State Parks, that's going to join us next. We've got an awesome video that we're going to play with him. And so, but I want to take a minute to kind of update you all of things that have gone on with the Federation. And certainly we had a great opportunity with House Bill 369 that got passed last week. The governor signed that bill into law. A lot of great information. And so that was what you'd call an omnibus bill. And so there was multiple bills that got amended onto those. And so the prescribed fire, the prescribed burning act was passed. We've got legislation that makes it a felony to turn loose feral hogs. Also wreck use liability. So if you're out on a trail and you get off the trail, and lots of different things with insurance as it relates to their campers and liability and stuff. So a lot of great things that were on House Bill 369. So I was certainly honored to be there in the governor's office when he signed that one into law last week. That's pretty cool.
A couple of big successes.
Yeah, it really was. And I think you measure success sometimes by the bills that don't pass. And so in all the bills that CFM was actively lobbying against too, none of them passed this year. So that's that in itself, I think, is a victory, certainly. But I think we'll look back on this year as a historic legislative year, that we didn't certainly killed all the bills, but also got several good ones passed. So
For sure.
great year to get everything going legislatively too. So I just wanted to pass that information along, and certainly, as people engage, it takes everybody, our Legislative Action Center, all you viewers out there, all of our board members, our affiliates, everybody that made calls. I say thank you, double thumbs up, because it is pretty cool when you see the how the sausage is made, so to speak, over there, when it actually becomes a reality. It's a great honor and opportunity for generations to come, certainly.
And if you haven't signed up for the LAC, you need to, because it's so convenient and you can stay in touch, because you guys down here do such amazing work, staying on top of all the bills and the House committees. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me how you can keep it all straight. But with the Legislative Action Center, it's so helpful to get an email going, hey, this is what CFM stands for, this is what's happening, we need your support, or we need you to say no, and all it is like just a click of a mouse, and sign up with your email. It sends it to all your elected officials. And I mean, I can't say enough things about how great that program is on the website.
I think a measure of success for me is when I go to a senator's or rep's office saying, all right, stop the calls. All right, I get your point, and stuff. And so that's cool, because we can track and see how many senators or reps are getting all these calls and emails and stuff on the back end of things. And so it does make a difference. And it does when you go into those hearings and talk to the folks and stuff, and they get it, and not everybody's making those calls and things. So it certainly makes me feel good when we say we're the voice of Missouri Outdoors, and our voice is being heard in the Capitol.
And it's so convenient and just so easy, because we're all busy in our everyday lives, and for an opportunity just to put your name and email address on it, and then get an email, hit submit, and then it gets sent off to your elected official. I mean, everyone should be signed up for the Legislative Action Center on the website confedmo.org.
Exactly. Well, we're about ready for our next video, and our auction's going to close in a little over less than 10 minutes. So 6:45. If you hadn't got your bids in, now's the opportunity. Outbid. You get the text alert if you signed up for that. It's a lot of cool auction items, and that's going to close here in less than 8 minutes. So get your bids in, folks. Certainly, if you haven't yet.
Yeah, especially if you want to shoot against me.
All right. We're going to turn into our next video. Our next presentation is from Missouri State Parks Director Mike Sutherland. Mike couldn't be here with us in person tonight, so he came by yesterday and he sat down with me and we had a great conversation. He's going to talk about a lot of great things going on in Missouri State Parks. So we're going to roll that video with Mike. Thanks, Mike, for joining us this week, and we appreciate your time, the opportunity, and update us on Missouri State Parks. So we'll just jump right into some questions and an update of different things going on. So what are some of the great things that have went on so far this summer in Missouri State Parks?
Wow, Missouri State Parks has been really busy this whole year. We've had a lot of visitors, probably one of the busiest years of really Missouri state parks. Last year we had a lot of people come out because there weren't a lot of other things to do. We had an amazing amount of new visitors, and those new visitors have become regular visitors, and so we've had a lot of people coming out, camping in our parks, those kinds of things. A lot of activities. We finally have some group activities happening, a lot of interpretive programming, a lot of other things going on in Missouri State Parks. Kind of an exciting thing that happened not too long ago is the Lieutenant Governor was at Bennett Springs State Park with a flapjack tour and welcomed guests and campers at Bennett Springs State Park. So that was pretty neat. And also that week we are, of course, in Missouri celebrating the bicentennial of the state. And so Governor Parson was visiting a couple of our sites, Pershing Boyhood Home up in McLeod, and then also Locust Creek Covered Bridge near Meadville about a week and a half ago. So that was exciting to have the governor there and supporting Missouri State Parks. So there's just a lot of programs, a lot of things to do, and a lot of people getting out of Missouri State Parks. It's been great.
Can you tell us about the recent dedication that you had several weeks ago?
Yeah, we did another big thing, really historic, and because it's not that often that we dedicate a new historic site or park, and we did just that about a little over maybe 2 months ago. We dedicated the Sappington African American Cemetery State Historic Site, and it's near Arrow Rock, near that State Historic Site, and also near the Sappington Cemetery State Historic Site. So now we have 92 state historic sites and parks in our system, and so it was a great day. We had over 150 people there for the dedication. A lot of family members of the folks who are buried in that cemetery, and the cemetery really does give an opportunity to talk about the important contributions African American people and those who lived in that area have made, not only to that area but to our entire state in building and developing our state. And it really was impactful being in this bicentennial year. So we're really proud of that day, and it was just a really good day to do that.
What are some other great things that are coming up this summer yet for people to get out and do and experience Missouri State Parks?
Well, there are a lot of programming that happens in all of our state parks. I was just at the Loman Landing for a concert. They have a monthly concert there, so that's just one example. There's going to be another one, actually two in August. But if you go to Missouri State Parks, mostateparks.com, and look at our things to do and look at upcoming events, you can see a long list of events that are happening in Missouri State Parks. They have bluegrass bands down at Roaring River State Park. There's also some concerts at Echo Bluff State Park. There are Learn to Paddle programs, Learn to Camp programs, also just interpretive programming about natural and cultural resources happening all over our system. And also we'll be having public meetings. We've been having public meetings at all of our state parks and historic sites. So if you have a particular state park or historic site in your area, have interest in it, want to have some input on the future of that state park or historic site, you can also find those dates on our website to attend those. We always love a lot of people to come and give us public input. Also, if you missed the last flapjack tour where Lieutenant Governor Kehoe was serving some of the campers, he's going to actually be next week up at Thousand Hills State Park on Tuesday morning, flipping flapjacks and meeting and visiting with people, and he just does a great job of really promoting not only Missouri but Missouri State Parks, and we really appreciate his contribution to doing that. He's a great supporter of Missouri State Parks, so that's going to be an exciting thing. And so there are just a lot of things happening all the way through. We have the bicentennial coming up. So on August 7th, the First State Capitol Historic Site in St. Charles will be the honorary capital for the day. Of course, it was the capital, in the early 1800s. But in celebrating the bicentennial, the governor has signed a proclamation making it the honorary capital for the day. And so there are a ton of activities, and that's August 7th. And that's there are going to be activities all day. There's going to be kind of a live timeline, so people can kind of see the history of Missouri, but there will be real people depicting those different eras in Missouri history. So that's another great activity to go out and see. So I kind of recommend people to go out, look at the website, look at the upcoming events, because there's just too many to name. You can go to a bicentennial hike at the Prairie State Park. Those are happening all through the summer and into the fall, so another bicentennial activity. But there's just a lot happening. We're really happy because this year, last year we really didn't get to do a lot of that programming, but this year we are doing a lot of outdoor activities, still observing social distancing, all the protocols that we need to, but we're able to do a little bit more of telling the story of Missouri, and we're really happy about that.
That's great. A lot of good things certainly happening this summer. Can you tell us a little bit more about the bike ride that's going to be happening too?
Well, actually, I have sad news about the bike ride. We had to cancel the bike ride for a combination of reasons, but one of the big reasons is the recent flooding that happened, and it was flash flooding, happened on the Katy Trail, and we had large sections of the Katy Trail, especially on the western side between Rocheport and Boonville, that were washed out all the way down to below the base rock, really. And so trying to make sure that we have a good experience for people, and also just the kind of the logistics of that, we figured out that it just wasn't really, we weren't going to be able to provide the experience that we want to provide folks. And so rather than just try to work around it, we'd have large sections where there were detours where people weren't even going to be on the Katy Trail. And so we made a tough decision to not have that. So that's one bicentennial event we were really looking forward to that's not going to be happening, and that decision just got made in the last few days.
Certainly. We want people to be safe when they're getting out in the parks, and appreciate your leadership, and those are tough decisions to make, but we certainly respect that. And
I was going to ride it myself, so I was really looking forward to it. And but on the bright side, the activities happening at First State Capitol on that same day, August 7th, will be available. So I invite people to go to the First State Capitol in St. Charles and have a good time there. And there's going to be a lot going on in Jefferson City as well, celebrating the bicentennial that weekend. So we had a concert planned as part of that bike ride. We're still going to do that at Lowman Landing. So if people want to come out for that on Saturday night, they still can. So.
Very cool. We kind of talked about the Katy Trail, and along those lines, the Rock Island. Can you give us an update on how things are going with the Rock Island and as it relates to the trail?
Yeah, and the Rock Island corridor, that's a 144-mile corridor that goes basically from Windsor on the western side, kind of down through a lot of towns, Versailles, Eldon, Owensville, a lot of towns people are familiar with, kind of over to Beaufort. And that's a corridor we've been working with Missouri Central Railroad on transitioning to Missouri State Parks to potentially become a trail. Again, that's going to hopefully be done through a private-public partnerships and some private fundraising, and those efforts continue. They're going pretty well. We have an agreement signed with Missouri Central Railroad that needing funds to be raised so we can accept the corridor. The kind of deadline, so to speak, was December 31st, but we didn't predict what was going to happen with the pandemic and all the different things that went along with that. So I'm optimistic that we're going to reach our goals, be able to accept the corridor by then. But in case we don't, we're already talking about contingencies, about maybe extending that deadline, because we are really the ones who set that to try to have enough time for funds to be raised, but also an end date so we could kind of get on with it. Again, because of the pandemic and just a lot of unforeseen things, if we aren't to our goal, we'll probably extend that, because we want the trail to be successful. We're really trying to figure out all avenues of ways to be able to accept the corridor in a way that doesn't take away from the other 92 state parks and sites that we already have in our system that people already know and love going to.
Yeah, thanks for that update. Certainly a lot of Missourians are excited about that opportunity, but we also understand what it takes to be able to accept that, and the potential there certainly is great, and we look forward to more updates and information to come with that. What are some other things that are happening in the parks this summer, or anything with campground upgrades as it relates to the revenue bonds and all those things
Yeah.
that are happening. Can you update us?
Yeah, I
about
definitely want to let people know about that. We in Missouri State Parks had a really successful legislative session. We had a proposal with the governor's support, and Governor Parson really supports Missouri State Parks and everything that we do. So we really appreciate that. But we had a proposal in front of the legislature to and propose to use revenue bonds as a way to have capital to make upgrades to our campgrounds, lodging, and other revenue producing type of projects. And so the legislature passed that $60 million in revenue bonds. The kind of mechanics and things that have to happen for those bonds to be sold and then used for that are all happening. We anticipate that sometime this fall will actually the bond sale will occur, and that we'll be able to start on those projects. We have 28 projects in 22 facilities around the state, mostly campground upgrades. One of the things that we have from those stakeholder meetings, those public meetings that I talked about, one thing that has become very apparent over the years is that upgrades in our campgrounds to full service, where water and sewer and electric are available, or transitioning our electric upgrade to handle the more modern, larger RVs is something that people care a lot about. And so these projects are those types of projects. And the revenue bonds, as the name kind of implies, is that the bonds will be paid back by the revenue generated by the project. And so we didn't want to set up a way that we were just, trying to borrow money for, and it had to be paid out of current earnings. What this will do is generate new earnings and pay for themselves. And that also allows us to do other cultural resource projects, other projects that aren't revenue producing with our other part of our capital improvement budget, and we will continue to do that. So we're really happy about the support the legislature provided on that, and we're ready to get to work. And it's really a once in a generation kind of impact to the Missouri State Park system. Really, I don't think a building effort this large over the whole state has happened in probably 30 years. So we're pretty excited about that. We have a lot of work to do though, so we're going to get to that. We anticipate that over the next 4 to 5 years, those projects will all be complete. So
wow, that's a pretty aggressive timeline, which is great because we all know that the great work from the CCC that they did in the 30s and 40s and those decades and stuff, and a lot of those buildings and things that will be upgraded in campgrounds especially and alike. Will some of that historic structures be addressed through those things, or will it mainly be infrastructure, or what are some of those specific?
Well, with the revenue bonds, it's going to be the campground upgrades, some lodging upgrades, and they're actually a couple of the projects do have a historic aspect to them. A couple of the lodging projects, for instance, at the current River State Park, there's the old Alton Box Company retreat. Really unique buildings there. Really is tells a part of Missouri's story when they had those kind of retreats dotted the current river, and it's one of the only ones left. And so one of the projects is to upgrade that, bring it back kind of to its original. So that's pretty exciting. That is while it is revenue producing because it's lodging, it has a really significant cultural resource impact. And then there are a couple other projects like that a little bit, but one thing that is from a cultural resource standpoint that is exciting is we're able to use the revenue bonds for these upgrade projects, but that helps give us the availability for our regular capital improvement budget that we ask for every year to do upgrades, that we can really concentrate on cultural resource structure kind of upgrades. Right now we have a really big project going on down at Bollinger Mill, bringing it back to life, and so that the mill can be back working. So that's pretty exciting. So we have a lot of natural resource, cultural resource projects going, as well as the revenue producing projects.
That's great. One of the projects that we have certainly seen come to fruition has been Echo Bluff State Park, and the amount of attendance and all that stuff is so good. How are things going down at Echo Bluff? this summer?
It's going well as all of our parks. And we talk about Current River State Park. It's located kind of in proximity to Echo Bluff, and Echo Bluff there, the campground lodge is one of our more modern facilities there. And so it's going to be interesting to have that juxtaposition between kind of that historic lodging and newer lodging, and people can take advantage of both. But our attendance has been really robust there. Occupancy has been robust really throughout our campground system throughout the state. Our occupancies have been really high. That's good on the one hand. It's a challenge on the other. Last year we went to a system of 100% reservable campsites. So that if you want a campsite in Missouri State Parks, you can make a reservation and know that it's available, know that you have it. Also, though, if you're kind of making a last-minute decision, kind of that day, want to go camp, you can check, see if there are any campsites available, and you can make a reservation that day. But that way you can kind of know before you go. And that is especially important because our occupancy is so high. And Missouri State Parks are very, very popular. And as most of the people who may be seeing this, a lot of people love Missouri State Parks. And because we had so many new users last year, new visitors that discovered Missouri State Parks, and now they're return visitors, and I think that's just going to continue to grow. We have seen, it's really been great. Some places it's created some challenges. Sometimes there's maybe more visitors than can be handled sometimes. So we're also taking measures to try to encourage folks to go to lesser used areas, spread out. There's lots of areas to go, whether it's in Missouri State Parks or a conservation area or another land management, public land. There are a lot of beautiful, great places in Missouri to go. So sometimes they might come to a Missouri State Park. If it looks crowded, it probably is crowded. So maybe pick another place because it's going to be right there close to. So, but if you want to go to, I recommend everybody, if you're planning a camping trip, prepare early. Check the Missouri State Parks website. Make your reservation early, and or if we do have state parks, all over the state. Some of them are more popular than others, and there usually always is a campsite available. So I encourage people to go, and maybe if that campground, that area state park that you really traditionally go to, that you want to go to all the time, it's full, you can't get a reservation there, check out a place that you've never gone before. Check out maybe Crowder State Park or Thousand Hills State Park, because every state park and historic site has really something unique to offer. And so I think when people go to those, maybe a place they hadn't thought of before, they'll wonder why they've never been there, because it's so nice. There's a lot to do. It's a fun place, and now they start going to that place, maybe not in some other place. But some of the most beautiful tent campsites in the system are at Wallace State Park, but not everybody knows that. But if they go there and go, well, wow, this is amazing. And I can just tell you a story like that for every state park and historic site around Missouri. So I just encourage people to not get discouraged if they go to, and we want to make a reservation at Table Rock State Park on the weekend before, and they find out there are no campsites, or Montauk and find out that there are no campsites available. Don't get discouraged. Just look for another state park that you may not have been to before and check that out.
Well, that's great. I think it's a true testament of the great job that your staff and your entire team do at Missouri State Parks, and we thank you for all the support and everything that you guys do, because our state park system is a top jewel, and we appreciate all the hard work that you guys do. So thanks for taking the time to join us today. This was a lot of information and great stuff, the update from you, and certainly appreciate you coming in this afternoon and recording this with us.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry my schedule didn't allow me to be here live and had to record it, but maybe the next time I can kind of be here live and then answer some questions as well. And just when people go out to a state park or historic site, be sure to thank the people who are making that possible. I get to work with some great people, but it's really the people in the sites and at the parks who are really making it all happen. So be sure to thank them for the job that they do, so that we all can enjoy the state parks and historic sites.
Certainly, it takes a whole village and a lot of great staff, but volunteers too.
Oh yeah,
campground hosts and stuff are out there making it all happen. Certainly.
For sure.
But thanks, Mike.
All
Appreciate
right,
your time today and joining us, and we will see you all out in Missouri State Park.
All right, thank you, and thank all of you.
Well, wasn't that a good message from Director Mike Sutherland, Missouri State Parks? But certainly appreciate him taking the time to put that. As you can see, a lot of cool things going on in Missouri State Parks this summer.
Oh yeah, gonna be a good year.
Yep, certainly attendance and all the problems that they're facing are certainly a good thing. Having that many people attending Missouri State Parks is certainly a rewarding challenge, I guess you could call it. So that about wraps up our hour. We're almost just a few minutes away from the top of the hour. Just wanted to thank everybody for attending tonight, and really consider please donating. Throw your gas money in something. Go to our confedmo.org and donate today, and let us know about what you'd like to see about the virtual event. So we certainly appreciate everybody coming.
Yeah, and congratulations to Anonymous 220. I'll see you August 14th at the Pull for Conservation.
That's a great point. Our any auction items that you won have to be paid for by July 31st or other arrangements made. So thanks to all the bidders and buyers, and you will receive an email by tomorrow, so you can go pay online and then give us a call if you get any questions. We have almost everything that's here in the office, so we can get arrangements, or otherwise, if you want to swing by and pick stuff up in the next couple weeks, or we can deliver it to you as we get across the state this summer. So,
well, I'd just say thanks for having me, man. It was a great hour. Thanks to the staff, the behind the scenes, and thanks to everyone that participated, man. We couldn't be doing it out here without you guys as well. So, Conservation Federation Missouri, go forth and conservation.
I love it. Thanks to Colton and Michelle behind the scenes here that are running the camera and the computers tonight for us. So awesome. Always a great team effort on everybody's accounts. So thanks everybody. We'll sign off and hope to see you out and about this summer.